When you're standing back, one of the things I like about not leading worship is I can just sit back there and not just hear you, but the swaying is just like this. Silent. I didn't know it was a dance tune. No, you just could. I love how you're into it. I like that song. The Silent Night sounds kind of good, doesn't it? Tomorrow, my wife and I, Becky, we are celebrating Christmas together for the first time by ourselves in 35 years. And so it's going to be quiet. And we're kind of looking forward to it. I mean, no offense to our kids, but we're really excited just to be together and just chill and have it be a silent day and a silent night. We'll get to see them in the days to come, and we'll get to see our grandkids in the days to come, so that'll be cool, but it's going to feel good. I drove up to see my mom this last week, and it's been a long road for her at her age since the beginning of this, being by herself in her home without seeing anybody, getting to the store once every 4 or 5 months. And she's a mover, go-getter, so this has really been a challenging time. So as siblings, we just kind of go and see her and just hang out and chat and catch up. She's delightful. And so I was talking to her about what Christmas was going to look like this year. Is she going to be with any of us siblings? Does she feel okay about that? And she wasn't certain about it. She has some reservations about it and some hesitation. Well, we talked about Christmas gifts and how she's going to do that, because she likes to give us some money, and she said it's been a hard year. And so she doesn't have as much money anymore. And I told her I was disappointed in her. And then so we're trying to think through, what do we do about gifts? And I said, Mom, what was it like when you were young? I mean, what kind of gifts did you get? And she looked at me just lovingly, right in my eyes. She face to face, she goes, oh, honey, we didn't get gifts when I was a child. I was like, what? Hard to live nowadays to see the gifts, right, overflowing, to know that you never got gifts back then. So I kind of pressed her on it a little bit. I said, Mom, why don't you tell me just a little bit of what it was like when you were a child growing up on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day? What did that feel like? What did that look like? And she was going to start talking. I said, can I video record you? I just want to be able to have this to kind of maybe show to my kids and my grandkids, to kind of just to honor that generation, right, that has gone through a bunch of stuff. And I wasn't intending to use it at all in my message today, but I think you're going to find this kind of fascinating and a little heartwarming. So check this out. Here's my mom.
When I think back of Christmas in my day, it was quite a bit different than what we celebrate now. I lived on a farm. I lived on a dairy farm. I had 7 brothers and sisters. I had 2 siblings that passed away in the 1919 flu. And so when it came to Christmas Eve day, my dad would go out and cut down a tree, and he would come home and set it up, and then we would all get ready to go to church. And it got really cold, and if my dad's car didn't start, then we would go on a horse-driven sleigh that my dad had built. And so we would always get to church, and we would always get to school one way or the other. We usually sang a song, and sometimes we had a special piece that we gave, and we were all excited. And when we left the church, we got a bag of candy. And we came home, and the tree was ready to be trimmed. So we popped popcorn and strung popcorn, and we strung cranberries, and we decorated the tree. But also we put on real candles. They were pinched on. My mother played the piano. We had a piano in our living room, and she would play, and we would sing Christmas carols. And as far as getting gifts, I don't remember that was a big deal for us. My sisters say that one day our hired man, who we called Grandpa Jensen, made us dolls for Christmas. On Christmas Day, we would see that someone had brought a crate of apples and a crate of oranges. So our celebrating Christmas was more about all excitement about going to church and saying our pieces and singing. If you celebrate it with your family and your church friends, or if you're home alone, just remember that we're celebrating the birth of Christ, and it is Christmas wherever you are.
I want to read this to you. You can follow it along there. It's the Christmas story. We read it maybe once a year, right? Probably should read it more often. It says, at that time, the Roman Emperor Augustus to be taken the Roman Empire. And this was the first census taken when Quirinius was governor of Syria. All returned to their own ancestral towns to register for this census. And because Joseph was a descendant of King David, he had to go to Bethlehem in Judea, David's ancient home. And he traveled there from the village of Nazareth in Galilee. And he took with him Mary, to whom he was engaged, who was now expecting a child. For there, time came for her baby to be born. And she gave birth to her firstborn son. And she wrapped him snugly in strips of cloth and laid him in a manger because there was no lodging available for them. And that night there were shepherds staying in the fields nearby, guarding their flocks of sheep. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared among them, and the radiance of the Lord's glory surrounded them, and they were terrified. But the angel reassured them, "Don't be afraid." He said, "I bring you good news that will bring great joy to all people. The Savior, yes, the Messiah, the Lord, has been born today in Bethlehem, the city of David. And you will recognize him by this sign. You will find a baby wrapped snugly in strips of cloth, lying in a manger." And suddenly the angel was joined by a vast host of others, the armies of heaven, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and peace on earth to those with whom God is pleased." And when the angels had returned to heaven, the shepherds said to each other, "Let's go to Bethlehem. Let's see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." They hurried to the village and found Mary and Joseph. And there was the baby lying in the manger. And after seeing him, the shepherds told everyone what had happened and what the angel had said to them about this child. All who heard the shepherd's story were astonished. But Mary kept all these things in her heart and thought about them often. The shepherds went back to their flocks, glorying and praising God for all they had heard and seen. It was just as the angel had told them. What a story. That people all around the States and all around the globe gather right here because of the power of that simplistic story. The title of my message is called Complicated. It's not complicated. So this is our nativity set, right? So basic, so simple. The three main characters, Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus. I love this scene. But the problem with me at times, maybe I'm just speaking to myself, sometimes I overthink things in life. Who here overthinks things? And you just raise your hand, please, so I don't feel so badly. Good, even if you're lying, thank you for raising your hand. I overthink things sometimes in life, and it paralyzes me from doing the things I need to do and from having the faith that I really should have. Sometimes I overdo. Anybody here take on too much on their plate and in their schedule? Raise your hand. We have a bunch of messed up people here today. But isn't it true? And so when I sing Silent Night, when I read that kind of story, there's something that's happening in your mind and heart and soul that feels kind of good, because these are things that you long for. And I am telling you right now, this is exactly the story that God wanted in that manger years and years and years and years ago. So that you can have the kind of that isn't trapped by all the things that you overthink and the things that you overdo. It's supposed to look like this. Simplistic, basic, and beautiful. The enemy wants us to feel out of sorts. To make us think that the story of God, the simple, beautiful plan of God, that it might just not be quite enough. But it is. It's not complicated. We just tend to make it so. So this is the story of Christmas that ends at Easter. God saw it all the way through. It started in humble means, and it ended in humble means. We know that. It's not complicated. For this is how God loved the world. You know it, John 3:16, right? He gave his one and only Son right here, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. It's not complicated. God just did it in a way that took the world by surprise. They were waiting for something else. They were not waiting for this. Who asks for this? They were waiting for someone to come in on a horse with shining armor to save the day and take away all the enemies. And God surprised them with this. God is full of surprises. And it's one of the reasons I follow him, because I love hanging out with a God that surprises me. But here's what we do. Maybe in your house as well. Because it doesn't seem like it's good enough, we just start adding pieces, right? So we start adding, look at this. We add the wise men who don't even belong in your nativity set. They didn't come for 2 years. But because the baby Jesus and Mary and Joseph aren't good enough, we think we need to add stuff to make it splashier and cooler. And so we just start adding things. We put some there. And we think, those guys aren't that great. Let's add some camels. That'll make our life better. And then, here's another camel. And then here is a shepherd, and that's fine. And then we'll add in some sheep here. And so that's good. There's another sheep. This is what we do. So all of a sudden, this simple story of Jesus, the simple story of God, all of a sudden looks radically different. In my life, these things represent things because I think it can't be this easy. I need to enrich the Christmas story by adding a bunch of moving parts. I need to enrich my life by adding a bunch of things. So the camels, they might be more money. The shepherd, I add the shepherd in there because maybe I want some more notoriety, or maybe I want a better house, or more cars, or whatever it might be. We start adding to our life, and all of a sudden we're overthinking, and we're overdoing, and we're exhausted, and we sit in a chair like this and we think, I would love to have a silent night. And you can. I don't know what you've been adding to your life. I don't know what you've been adding to your faith. But I'm all the way. And you'll find faith. And you'll find God. And you'll find going against the current of life, though, isn't it? Because it's so easy to add things. Because it makes it look more exciting. Maybe even more palatable at times. But it takes away from the beauty of the real story of God. Because what we really want is with God and with one another. We don't need all of this stuff. It's not about the things you have. It's not about your power or prestige and position and climbing a ladder and getting things. You trade that all in to have peace with God and peace with your family members and peace with your friends. You trade it all in to have freedom with God, to just be who you are, real and honest in front of him without any fear. You'd trade it all in to have that kind of freedom with your husband or your wife or your kids, or your parents, or your boss, or your friends, to have total freedom, you trade it all in to have grace unending. And so would I. See, it's not complicated. We just complicate it. And I don't want you to go home and go to your nativity and remove the wise men, because they look good. Don't do it. To stay biblical, it's fine. I don't want you to take anything away. I mean, in my family, this is what happens. Right there. So this is the nativity set at my house. When the granddaughters leave, I go out there, and this is what I find. So I find a medieval character up on top guarding the place. I see a creepy character right there by baby Jesus. I see a pig. Barbie, Amazon Barbie, apparently she's massive. I'm not talking about both sides of my mouth. My granddaughters have figured it out already at ages 5 and 3. And I think we need to as well. The most beautiful thing is the simplicity of the story that draws people there. And all they're doing, they're putting all these characters there because they want everybody to know the story of God. They want everybody to know the story of Jesus. They want everybody at the manger, because that's where real life is found. So with that backdrop of the simplicity of a silent night, with the beauty of just a manger with Mary and Joseph and Jesus, with that understanding, I just want to I want to leave you with two things this afternoon. That I truly believe that there is a flow of Christmas. There's a flow of Christmas. And it's so simplistic that I think you'll remember it for the rest of your life. A number of years ago, it was 1992, my wife and I, we wanted to, and there we are. I mean, I haven't changed at all, but doesn't Becky look so much younger in this picture? It was after church on Christmas Eve, just like this. And you could take yesterday, that kind of weather, and put it tonight, where we decided to travel home to Detroit Lakes because we wanted to be with my family. Never got to see my family very often when I was a pastor for lots of years. And so we couldn't wait to get home. But the forecast was horrible. There was no travel advised. But when you want to get home to Christmas Eve, you don't listen to anybody. You just do it. Or at least a guy does. Against my wife's wishes, we jumped in the car and put Brady in the back seat. And he just slept, 6 months old. And so we're driving, we're getting kind of up the road on Highway 10, and all of a sudden, it starts getting so horrible, we cannot see a thing. It's complete whiteout. We have no idea if we're on the highway or not. And so my wife is kind of crying. I mean, it's a scary situation. Nobody's on the road, and once in a while, a semi would come flying up behind us, but he couldn't see us, and so I thought, oh my word, we're going to die on Christmas Eve at my parents' house. And so my wife would have her head out the window trying to see if we could see if we were on the road. It was a horrible situation. And the guy on the radio said, Highway 10 is closed both directions, from Fargo to Timbuktu. And I'm like, no, it's not. We're on it, I think. A little bit later, the guy says, if you're all driving right now, you're an idiot. My wife says under her breath, nailed it. Yeah, I know. Turn that radio off. It was a scary situation. Didn't know what to do. Not the days of cell phones at all, right? So we just were driving 10 miles an hour along the highway that we thought we were on. And all of a sudden I saw a light out in the distance. So I went toward the light. We meandered our way, and I had no idea if I was going to go down into a ditch or over a cliff. We just saw the light, and we slowly went toward it. As we got closer, we realized the light was outside of a home, so it was kind of like a farm light. And so I pulled up into a driveway, and I got out of the vehicle, and I walked up to the house. Becky stayed in the car, and I knocked on the door, and I knocked on the door. And of course, they can't hear. It's storming, and it's windy, and the snow is coming. Nobody's expecting anybody to be knocking at her door at 8 o'clock at night in that kind of weather. And I just kept knocking, and all of a sudden, a woman comes to the door. She goes, "Hello, can I help you?" And I said, I'm traveling with my child, because she was, and we are looking for a place to stay for the night. We can't go any further. We have nowhere to go. We have nothing that we can do. And she said, "Come on in." So I went and got Becky. We brought her in, and they had a couple high school students that were there kind of looking at us strange, like, "Wait, what is happening here? This guy and this woman, the baby, are traveling, and they need a place to stay Christmas Eve at our place." And so we stayed for hours and hours, and then we were able to move on. We got rescued by my family members. Had a good time with that family. I'm telling you right now, that family doesn't remember anything that they got for Christmas. No presents, nothing that year. But I'm telling you right now, every single year today, on a night like this, they're gathered since 1992. They're looking around the table tonight and said, "Do you remember back in 1992, that dorky guy who took his family out in that weather?" And they knocked on the door and they brought the baby in, and we were the ones that let him in. See what happens when you open your home, when you open your heart to those around you? God not only rejoices over a family like that, He does things in you and through you that becomes embedded into your story forever. It's not complicated. Here it is. The first part of the flow of Christmas is let Jesus in. Let Jesus in. I don't know if you have roadblocks for Jesus right now in certain parts of your life or your mind or your heart, your soul, or your relationships. As a friend of yours and even a stranger of yours, I'm saying you need to push through those and let Jesus into every single area of your life. It's a beautiful story that will change you from the inside out. And you will never go back to cluttering up your life with things that don't matter. Maybe this year, this Christmas and in 2021, that you just open your life, you open your heart a little wider to God, a little wider to the story of Jesus. Maybe this Christmas, maybe 2021 is the year you make a decision. I'm opening my life to people all around me. I might even open my home sometimes for people that I would never have in my home. I'm opening my heart to people that I haven't had a relationship for a while because of different things that have come between us. I'm going to be the one that steps forward and opens the door and says, "Come on in." There's people around you looking for shelter. There's people in your own family looking for shelter. They feel shut out of this world, and they feel shut out of peace and grace and hope. Why not you bring the Christmas story in a way that they've never seen before, but representing the heart of God and being with skin on in this beautiful story of the simplicity of just letting Him in. It's not complicated. It's not. So that's the flow. Let Jesus in. But it keeps moving for you and me. A few weeks ago, I was at Casey's gas station in Rockford, Minnesota, just down the road. And it was in the middle of the day, just about noon, so it was pretty busy in there. And I was about fourth in line, and the line wasn't moving at all. And you know you've been in those lines before. The people in front of me started huffing out loud, like, oh. Like that's going to make the people move faster. It's like when you get behind someone, I mean, I've read about this where people will get close behind a car and they just kind of, like it's going to make them go faster if you tailgate them really tight, but it never does. It's the same thing at Casey's, apparently. We weren't moving. And they're kind of shuffling their feet. And so I kind of just poked my head around to see what was happening at the counter, and I saw exactly why there was a log jam. There was an old guy up there. He was probably 75. If you're older than 75, I don't mean old, I'm just saying older gentleman, and just looking at him from head to toe, life has brought this guy through the ringer multiple times. incredibly unkept, struggled physically with some things, struggled announcing things to the clerk who had just grown weary of him after about 30 seconds. And the people behind were just like, come on. And all of a sudden, I see him reach into his pocket and he pulls out a sack of coins. And the person in front of me goes, "You've got to be kidding me." And he pours it onto the counter, and all the coins go flying. A number of them stayed, right? And so the clerk looks at him like, "What is this?" And this guy, it just breaks my heart just thinking of it. He just hung his head. And so the clerk starts counting the coins, and I'm standing in line. I've had a lot of Christmases, a lot of times in my life where I didn't let Jesus in. But sometimes I do. And in that line, Jesus had been let into my life and into my world and permeated a little bit of my life, just enough where I had to do something with this. When I looked at the coins, I thought, if they aren't silver dollars, this guy's not buying whatever he has to buy. And so sure enough, I excused myself past a person and another person, and I said to the clerk, "Hey, I will buy and pay for whatever this guy doesn't have enough money for." And the guy looks at me. He goes, "Why would you do that?" And I said, "Because you're in a tight spot." I said, "I've been in a lot of tight spots in my life, and I've needed rescuing." This Christmas story, we're in a tight spot. God saw that we were in a tight spot, and so he sent a rescuer. Because just like I didn't have enough money, whatever he needed to get out of that store, you and me, we can't add enough things, whether it's material things. We don't even have enough faith, spiritual things that we can add in order to pay our way to heaven. It was a gift. God brought heaven to earth. We didn't have to do anything else. That's the beauty of the Christmas story. He brings heaven to earth. My responsibility in line for that kind of a situation at that point, my job is to bring heaven to earth for an old guy that I don't know. So I'm pulling out my wallet, and the clerk puts her hand up, and she says, "Hey, do you see what I said, "No." She goes, "He's buying cigarettes." And the old guy looks at me, he goes, "I bet you don't want to pay for cigarettes." And I said, "I'll buy anything. I don't care if it's cigarettes, whatever it is. It doesn't matter to me." And so I paid for just cigarettes. Having candy and stuff, and I don't care, just whatever. I'll pay for this. And so we paid for it. And he gets to the door and he turns around and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, God bless you." And I said, "God bless you too." I thought, when's the last time his life looked someone in the eye and said, "God bless you"? When's the last time? And so I told him, I said, "Hey, pay yourself. Those things can kill you." And he laughed and we both laughed, and that was it. I guarantee you that his head hit the pillow that night, and he thought of that exchange. This is a beautiful exchange where God exchanges his only son for freedom for you and me, regardless of anything that we could do to get out of a tight spot. I think God works in exchanges like that. And so maybe you have so many things in your life, possibly, that are cluttering it up, that it's hard for God even to kind of wedge his way into some of these times of your life. Maybe you have so many things that you're trying to do and chase after that he can hardly get your ear. I've been there. I'm still there at times. Maybe this is the one Christmas that you remember for the rest of your life. It's just about Mary and Joseph. It's about Jesus. The guy was not a lost cause. He happened to be the cause of why God bankrupted heaven for you and me. We can have a way to glory. Again, I don't act on all these opportunities that God presents me, but I want to. I want to. If you knew anything about my life, if you know anything about my life right now, you quickly find out that Jesus is saving me every single day from myself and from my sin. But because I hang out with God, because I do life with the Holy Spirit and with Jesus, I'm not afraid of the manger. I'm not afraid of Jesus. I'm not afraid of the story. I cling to this story. I long for this story. I need this story so that I can live fully on this earth. So you probably have already figured it out by now, right? There's more to the flow. Let Jesus in and let Jesus out. I don't care how many verses you have memorized. I don't care if you know all 6 verses of certain hymns. I don't care about all the other. If you're just letting Jesus in and retaining him, the Christmas story dies in the manger. Jesus spent 33 years on this life, walking around, showing the heart of God, and then asking us to do the same. He kept saying, follow me. What that means is, follow me. Do what I do. And we'll start seeing people believing in the story. That's the flow. Let Jesus in this Christmas. In 2020, let Jesus in more than you've ever done, and then let him out. In exchanges at Casey's, in exchanges between you and a friend, in exchanges between enemies of yours. And I think by next Christmas, you'll say, that was an incredible year of letting in and letting out my Savior. To me, it's just like breathing. You breathe in, you breathe out. Jesus in, Jesus out. See, I told you, it's not complicated. Jesus in, Jesus out, there's like 4 words. I believe this is going to be the best Christmas ever for you. If you believe this and hold on to this. Remind one another all the time when it starts getting crazy and wild, you start adding things to life, say, whoa, is this going to interfere with what God can do with us? If so, let's not. Let's just say no. Let's say no. So I just say Merry Christmas. Let Jesus in, let Jesus out, wherever you go. We're going to end this service, and we're going to light candles. We have real candles that you maybe are sitting on. And here's what we're going to do. The worship team come on up here, and we're going to sing "O Holy Night." It's a beautiful, beautiful song. And this is a holy moment, and it's a holy. And what we're going to do, because we want to make sure that we're always careful around here, we're going to have a couple people that are going to come up. They're going to light the candles here on the platform, and then they're going to light the candle that's on the end of the aisle. And you can light the person's candle next to you if you're in a family. But if you're not in family, raise your hand, and that person will just light your candle, and then the next one and the next one, okay? So that's how we'll do it. And then the other thing I want to mention is that you can take this candle home. It's our gift to you. But you can take it home because it might be something that you light tomorrow. And you just have some time saying, God, please remind me all the time. The simplicity and the beauty of that story, letting Jesus in and letting Jesus out wherever I go. Okay? All right. God bless you. Let's sing together.
stand with us as we prepare to sing.
Holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till He appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born, oh, night, holy night, oh, night divine. Led by the light of faith serenely beaming, with glowing hearts by His cradle we stand. So led by light of a star sweetly gleaming, Here came the wise sent from Orient land. The King of Kings lay thus in lowly manger, in all our trials, born to be our friend. He knows our need. To weakness is no stranger. Behold your King, before Him lowly bend. Behold your King, before Him lowly bend. Truly He taught us to love one another. His law is love, and His gospel is peace. Chains shall He break, for the slave is our brother, and in His name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise His holy name. Christ is the Lord. Oh, praise His name forever. His power and glory praise His name forever. His power and glory evermore proclaim. His power and glory evermore proclaim.
It's not complicated. May this be a Christmas. May this be a year where you let Jesus in and in and in and let him out and out and out. And the world will be changed forevermore because of you. God bless you. Have a wonderful Christmas Eve. If you're opening presents, who's opening presents tonight? Oh, who's opening them tomorrow? Who wants to now open them tonight? Enjoy your gifts, enjoy your time, love one another, and have a wonderful Christmas. Thanks for being here this afternoon.